Welcome everyone to today's session. We've had our tester asking questions on previous session, which is on risk management and change management within the project. Today we are talking on project change. Sorry, we're talking about project financial management, not change. And we will do a bit of practice, and there are some things that I will cover today that is just for information purposes only. That means you might not see yourself functioning in that role, or they might not ask you questions in that, but just to give you an idea of what it is in financial management. That's project financial management. I will share my screen now. Can you all see my screen? Is my screen visible?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. So today we are covering project financial management. Who would like to contribute and tell us what they understand by project budget? Just one contribution. Okay.
Hello.
Hi.
Assume that project budget is the financial amount that is marked out to complete a project.
Thank you. Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, so before you build a house, before you do a lot of things, you need to, an example, let's say, before you want to buy a car, you want to buy a house, you need to think of how much this is going to be involved. How much do you have? How much do you need to save? How much do you need to get a loan from the bank? And that is similar to project financial management as well. So financial management is making sure that you have the plan, is like a plan approach of how you manage all the funds that are being given to you to deliver that project. Okay, so is a project, I titled it as the project management approach, which refers to the strategic planning, organization, like how you organize it, directing and controlling of your project financials. So you wanted to buy a car now, you need to think of how much you have, you need to think of how much loan you would get, and you need to even check with the loan, how much can you afford for the repayment every month, which is almost similar to project change management, sorry. So it involves analyzing budgets, analyzing the forecast, saying, okay, this is how much we have, or how much this project would cost, and tracking it regularly, communicating it to the senior stakeholders, it is very important to have financial management in project management. Let me put it that way. And the reason is it helps to provide sight and direction. So we wanted to do, popular example I've been given is around Apple. We wanted to migrate Apple, we wanted to upgrade Apple 11 to Apple 12. We need to know how much that is going to cost us. We need to know what is involved in the project. We need to know the resources that are involved. We need to know what is the benefit that is going to come from us doing this, even though we're increasing the look and feel and all the details that are involved in it. But why should we be doing it? So to some extent, project financial management helps the senior stakeholders to make that decision to say, yes, this is a viable project because we're seeing how much we're investing into it and how much benefit this is going to bring for us. So calculating that help us to be able to have an idea of what the project will cost. And the objective or the reasons or benefits of having project financial management is it supports project funding. It also helps with in that company or in that organization, if they want to do similar projects, they can have an idea saying, oh, we've done this type of project in the past, and this is how much it costs us. So because they have been able to track and monitor how much it costs them to deliver that particular project. So it helps to source for funds to say we wanted to do similar project and this is how much we need for it. It also helps to analyze the return on investment. Because if you're not tracking your project financials, you wouldn't know if you're making a loss. You wouldn't know if the project is tracking on, if it's tracking as the amount you've already allocated to it. You wouldn't know if at the end of the project there's any benefit that is associated with it. So having a structured project financial management in place helps you to be able to know return on your investment, profit margin that you're expected at the end of the project. The other bit is it also helps with maximizing resources utilization. So if you have ever worked in consulting world as a PMO, right? This will be very applicable because if you work in a normal IT infrastructure projects environment, you may not need this, you may not be involved with resources management and that. But in a consulting world, this helps you to know number of resources that are required, number of resources that are required for the project, number of them that are fully utilized, number of how many resources are on the bench that are waiting to be utilized or they are underutilized. So having that financial control on your project, be able to help you to use all your key resources very well and maximize profit on them. It also supports operational efficiency. So operational efficiency means in a company or in a portfolio of projects now, once we are tracking our budget regularly, it helps us to know which projects are underspending, which projects are overspending, which projects should we invest more money into, which one should we reduce more money into because we have financial management in place. And that involves we are managing the budget, we are managing the forecast, we're managing the actuals. So we are tracking how everything is going alongside. It also supports business investment opportunities. So we know how much we have invested on this project, on this program. In the future, in case we wanted to do similar projects, or even while we are still doing this project, we notice we are underspending on it. We could use that money, the leftover. So we had already planned we will spend this certain amount of money on a project, but because of the way we are managing and tracking our financials, we are able to see some opportunities for us to reinvest the underspent money into another project. So that is in a nutshell what the benefit of having a structured project financial management in place. Do we have any question? So for today, right, there are 3 key areas I want us to focus on. That in any interview or anywhere you find yourself, they are key that you need to be able to provide information on, or when they are asking you in an interview, you should be able to say you understand what is a project financial management, and that involves the budget, the forecast, and the actuals. Purchase order, invoice, accruals, retention, project CRs. These ones are things that might come in along the way, or they are, I've put them in here today because they involves around project financial management, but it might not be applicable in the role, whichever role you find yourself in. But the key thing when asked in an interview is you understand what is the project budget, what is the project forecast, and what is the project actual. And a project, I'll start with the project budget. Project budget is the allocated funds to deliver the project. And that has taken into consideration the resources that will be involved, the time frame is going to take for those resources to be able to do the assigned work. It has also included the licenses, different materials that may be required to be able to deliver the project. So that is how they develop and create a project budget. You could be involved in supporting the project or program managers when they're developing their project budgets, or you may not be involved in it. It depends on the organization, and it depends on the structure of the PMO that they have in place. It also depends on your level of experience as well. So project budget is usually being approved by the project sponsors. Every project always have a project sponsors. Project sponsor is more like the senior stakeholders. They are the ones that put their neck on the line, saying, yes, I'm happy with this project. I'm happy for it to go ahead. And they will be the one that will approve most of the finances or the funding that is required for you to be able to deliver the project. So they approve your project budget. At the initial stage, when the project is being set up, you tend to have something called PID, or that's the project initiation document, or in some environment it's called statement of work. These detail the deliverables that are required to be delivered for the project. It also details the resources that are required, and it also details the timeline that is required for that project. They put all of this together to define what will be delivered, to say this is the amount we need or the funding we need to be able to deliver that project, and that form your project budget. To some extent, project budget doesn't change, except when we have a PCR, which is the project change control. And that could happen anytime within the project. But project budget is usually set at the beginning of the project. They might not have an overview of the whole of it, and it depends on the organization as well. So if it's in a consulting world now, they might not give a full view to say, okay, this is what this project is going to be, because, and it depends on the type of project as well that you're delivering, because there are some projects that you need to explore all the opportunities, all the different planning, all the different details that are required. So you might break that budget down into different phases. Whereas in some organization, every year, a budget is allocated to the portfolio office to say, for this 2022, we intend to deliver 12 projects, and this is the budget that has been allocated to them. So the budget is being allocated by the budget sponsors, and they are the ones that approve and said, yes, we are happy with this. So you get to know as a PMO person, this project, this is the budget for it. In some instances, you might be involved in them deciding what is required. Then the forecast bid. As the project is progressing, and based on experience of other projects that has been delivered, you tend to forecast and say, this is what we are going to spend. Budget is allocated funding based on, it could be historical projects, as well as understanding of what is required for the project. We understand the scope, we understand the resources, we understand the timeline. Forecast is a profile, I'll put it that way, is a profile of budget, is a profile of project budget. So forecast is spreading it across, let's say the project is for 12 months, right? You forecast each of the months saying, you've given me £10,000 to spend on this project. We'll make it 12,000 so that it's easier. £12,000 to spend on this project as the budget for it. I'm going to profile it and spread it over the next 12 months and I will spend 1,200 for the first 1 month. I will spend 2,000 in the second month. That's already 3,200 out of your 12,000. I'm going to spend 4,000 in the third month because that is when a lot of work needed to be done. So profiling to say this is how much you needed every month based on the budget. And the forecast can change. It can change due to different factors or different things that may happen on the project. But forecast is just profiling and telling the senior stakeholders how you want to spend the money and how they should be expecting the budget to be utilized or to be used up. In some other words as well, it could be, this is how much budget has been allocated, and I have put it to say I only need it for the first early part of the project. So just profiling it and provide details of what you wanted to spend it on is the forecast. PMO tend to get involved more with the forecast as well as with the actual. Actual is actual spend, actual expense that the project really spent per that month. And you tend to compare all of them together. That's why you have your budget analysis or project budget analysis. So that is comparing what is the original budget that has been agreed, what is the forecast you think you're going to spend at that month, and what is your actual. Do we have any variance between the two of them? And from this, you can create a report. As a PMO, you will tend to receive a lot of requests from the project team asking you to create a report to say, can you analyze where the shortfall is? Is this clear so far? You can just put a comment in the chat box if it's clear. So that is about the budget and the forecast and the actual. I'll show us one of the slides that we did during Esther raised her hand. Go on, Esther.
Okay, good morning. Thank you. So I wanted to ask, in my own workplace, we have forecast and how much the organization is trying to commit before the actual. So it's like 3 lines. I just want to ask if it's right, because that's what the PMO does. Though we have budget, but after forecasting, they will now say this is how much they want to commit to the project, and we just have to work with that. So I want to ask, is it the same thing with your organization?
Yes, every organization will be different in the way they manage their budget or their funding for the projects. Forecast will always change, but yes, forecast is a prediction, is an estimated spend. Let me put it that way. You know, like I explained earlier, that you profile it. They've given you £12,000 to spend in 1 year for the project. You now estimate and say, I need to spend 1,200 in the first month. I need to spend 2,000 in the next month. I need to spend 5,000 or 4,000 in the next month. So you are estimating it. There's every probability that this might change as the project progresses, but that is the best estimate. And your estimate would be based on experience, will be based on the type of project that you have been involved in as well in the previous times. And it will also be based on your best guess if you haven't done that before. But they try as much as possible to advise that you have enough understanding when you're making that estimate. The reason of this is because it helps the senior stakeholders to know, and it gives them an idea saying, even though you have requested for 12,000, we have set that 12,000 aside for you to be able to deliver the project. Tracking it, or your estimation will say, yes, we are still going to spend it. Or no, the 12,000 that you've given us, allocated to us, we don't think that is going to be enough. Because as at the time when we allocated that budget, that is all we know. As the project is progressing, we realize that we would be spending more. So you are forecasting that you would need more money than what was originally allocated. And that's where your PCR comes in. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes, please. Thank you.
You're welcome. And actual is what has been spent.
I have a question, please.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and so please, so if you are new to the role, in terms of the budget forecasting, can you use like previous projects that have been done in the past? Or is there some kind of best practice on the estimates?
Yes, you can use previous projects that has been done. And that's why all these documentation are very key in the project management. This is just to support similar projects, if a similar project needs to be delivered as well, so that they can look back and say, yeah, we've delivered this type of project in the past, and this is how much we spent on it. So you can use that. And there are a lot of tools out there as well that people use to be able to estimate, saying projects like this, how much, and you need to go to the market and see what is the resources, how much are they charging for each of those resources that will be involved in delivering the project. So you can use either of those two.
Thank you.
And you can speak with, you're welcome. You can speak with the subject matter expert as well to guide you in terms of what is required if you are very new to the role, or experienced project managers or program managers. Okay. So go to purchase order. What is a purchase order? Purchase order is just a binding, is a legally binding document or an agreement between someone that is buying. It's just like saying, is a binding agreement that each of the company that is buying a goods from another company, let's say the company is providing the services, that's an agreement. So it's a legal document that confirms the details in terms of timeline, in terms of the resources and the cost of the services that will be rendered by a supplier or a servicing company. So I'm not sure if you heard about it. So when people are contracting, they will say, oh yes, do we have a PO cover for it? Even though you already have like a statement of work, you already have a contract in place that says, this is the type of project we wanted to do, this is how much it's going to cost. A purchase order comes in after all of that has been done to help you and say, we are going to provide this amount of money for this project at this stage of the project. So most times you don't get the full budget for you don't get the full PO for the project sometimes when the project is starting, when it's initiating. So they might break it and say, instead of us giving you the whole allocation for the project, we're going to give you this number of PO. This PO is going to cover this time frame or this milestone of the project. So it's usually the buyer, that's the people that you are providing the service to. They will be the one that generate the purchase orders. And sometimes you don't need to get yourself involved in this as a PMO, because it is the work of the finance department within the organization to organize this. If you are working in a consulting world, you might be involved in some purchase orders because of the projects that you're working on. So it's just for information purposes today. Unless you are working as a PMO finance, then your background will probably be around finance and accounting, and you might need to support with when they are raising these purchase orders. Right. The other one is invoice. Invoice is just like a receipt or a billing schedule that's of work that has been done. So you create it to say, when you go to a restaurant to buy something or a grocery shopping, you get your receipt to say, this is what you have done. This is the shopping that you've done. And these are the items that has been bought, that you bought, and this is the final bill. So that is the same thing with invoice. You get to send your invoice out. If you are contracting, right, you send your invoice to your agency to say, okay, this is the work number of days that I have worked this month. And this is obviously they are in agreement with the rate that you have agreed at the beginning of the project. The same thing is similar with project invoice as well. So when you come in as a PMO, you tend to support with the invoice generation. It is not in all PMO roles, right? I've told you that the key things in PMO is the budget, forecast, and actual. All of these ones are additional if you find yourself in an environment that does that, or that wants you as a PMO to be involved in it. So the invoice is being generated. You review the invoice to make sure that it aligns with the work that has been done by the project team. That's your role as a PMO. And there are different tools that are being used by different organizations to generate the invoice. And sometimes invoices are being generated by the finance team. They send it across to you to say, okay, based on the project that you're working on, this is what we have captured in the system. Is this okay? Are you happy for this to be sent over to the end client, to your customer? Or it could be that you're working in an organization and you need to approve the invoice that has been sent by the third party that is working on your project. So it's vice versa. So sometimes you might be just reviewing it before sending it out. Sometimes you review it because they have received and you confirm, yeah, these people have worked on this project, is okay for us to pay that invoice. And there are usually terms and conditions around the invoice as well. So accrual, I would say, is a charge of work that has been done, but it's not yet included in an invoice. This one is very particular from my own understanding, though, as a PMO, is if you haven't got the details of the work that has been done and you need to make claim of it before the month-end process or the financial billing period. Every organization has got a financial billing period. Most of the time is every month at the end of the month, where they need to, the finance team need to make sure that all of the books align together. So you tend sometimes to accrue for work that has been done, but you are yet to invoice it because you don't have the details in place to be able to include it in your invoice. So as a PMO, you get involved in this, not all the time, but you get involved in this to support the project team to record some of this accruals and Sometimes it could be like the resources is off sick and they've worked for a period of time on the project, but you know that they have worked, but they are not there to enter the required time in the system for you to be able to claim it. Sometimes the invoice, the accruals can be claimed before the invoice is sent out to the client, or it could be sent as part of the next month. So you could add it as part of your next month forecast because of the work that has been done prior to the time, like it's been done in previous month. And it's all up to the finance team to make sure that all accruals are reversed once the information has been entered into the system. So you don't need to worry your head too much about that. The other bit is retention. So retention is more like a percentage of work. This one as well, I experienced this in a consulting world. And if you're involved in some big projects as well, when the project is being signed between the sponsors and the key stakeholders, the people that you're delivering the service to would say at each of the milestones or every month when you send in your invoice to us, you remember they are the one that provide the purchase orders because you are the one providing that service to them. They are the one buying your service. So they send you purchase orders. You send invoice to them based on the work that you have done. Or some other team, people that have worked on your project, they send invoice to you based on the work that they have done on your project. Retention is where before the work started on the project, we agreed that we are going to keep a certain percentage of the work that is done until a milestone has been achieved. So it could be that for every month now, they would say we would take 10% retention on every month invoice that is sent to us. When you reach a milestone, after each of the milestone, we'll pay you back all the retentions. So an example could be for the project now, you spend £1,000 this month and you send the invoice for £1,000. Then the finance team as well will generate a 10% retention. So instead of you getting £1,000 based on the invoice that you've sent, you would get £900. They are taking 10%, which is £100 out of they wouldn't pay it. It's not like they will not pay it at the end of the day, but they will not pay it with the invoice that has been sent. It will highlight it to say, this is the invoice value, this is the retention, 10% of it, and this is the value of it. So sometimes you don't necessarily need to generate this. This is done by the finance team. But because you are involved in the project, you need to make sure that you capture all of this retention so that when you are doing your budget tracking, when you are doing end of the year budget analysis and review, all of this information are captured and submitted. And you need to capture the date to say, okay, retention was sent for this month. This is a percentage of retention that was sent in value. This is how much it is costing. And at the end of each milestone could be at the end of every 3 months, we get our retention value back, plus our invoice value. So it's just like saying they're keeping some percentage of the money of the invoice rather than paying everything in full. And it's just for them to confirm to say, yes, we're sure this person, they're going to deliver to that. It's just giving the end client the confidence that you're going to deliver or meet up to the time scale or the milestone that has been agreed. And we talk about projects here. Like last week, we already talked about change management within the project. So this is just saying that, I mentioned earlier that your project is usually static unless there is a change. So if as the project is progressing, there's a need for you to ask for additional funding, you had this, and this additional funding is related to funding, you add that to your project. So here you need to take note of it. And most of the time, every project requires additional funding, and make sure that that information is captured in your budget tracker. So far, do we have any question? Is this explanatory? Who is raising hand? So the kid, Richie. Hi, Richie. Do you want to say something?
Yeah, I just needed to make little clarification, just a question. You mentioned budget analysis. I don't know if you could just explain in little, or maybe if there is a particular tool that needs to be learned so as to be able to know how to do budget analysis. Thank you.
You're welcome. So for budget analysis, there are tools, but the key thing is it depends on what the organization is using. And another thing is you could use Excel. You just need to try and as much as possible to learn to use some basic Excel, and that will help you. We'll look at something just briefly in this session to see a bit of the analysis or variance of how you calculate some of this budget actuals, forecasts, and any variance that happens between them. So analyzing it and giving that like in form of a report to the senior stakeholders. I will go to the next one. So that is all I have in terms of project budget. It's not very complicated, so long you're slightly good with Excel and slightly good with numbers. Just making sure that you put a lot of attention to details to it when you're looking at it, and try to understand how to use some simple formulas in Excel so that if you use one method, you validate it using another method to say, okay, I have used maybe pivot tables, and this is the number that is giving me. Now I need to use a VLOOKUP, or now I need to just use a sum ifs. It depends on your Excel experience or knowledge. So key responsibility for a PMO person, and this could be a PMO lead, this could be a PMO analyst, is to, you could create a project tracker. It doesn't have to be something complicated. It's just showing what is the budget, what is the forecast, what is the actuals, and tracking them regularly. And you track it, what is the year-to-date view of where we are, what is the forecast to complete of where we have. So analyze the project variance, review the invoices. So when you review invoice that has been sent out, sometimes clients might not pay the invoice on time. So making sure that this is tracked to see which of the invoices are still outstanding, which one is overdue. So there are different tools that an organization use. You just need to run a report and see based on the invoice number. You run a report and you see, okay, this invoice has been paid. This invoice is still unpaid, but it's not yet overdue, or this invoice is overdue. Who are the people that we need to chase? Highlighting this to the project managers, because the project manager might not be involved in it. And also tracking purchase orders. You remember I mentioned purchase order is an agreement, and it's after all the contract has been signed, saying, okay, we have this PO cover for this milestone. So as a PMO person, they would give you the purchase order by the finance team. They give you the purchase order number, and you track it to say, yes, we are still covered. Because before any invoice is being paid, it needs to have a purchase order in place. It needs to be covered by a PO. So as a PMO person, you track it. So let's say you have a purchase order of your budget, 12,000. Sometimes it doesn't work that way anyway. Okay, budget is 12,000 pounds. Purchase order, they could give you a purchase order of 5,000 pounds, right? And you track it. The first month you spend 1,200. Then you need to say, okay, out of your PO value now, you have spent 1,200 out of it, so you have 3,800. The following month, you sent an invoice of 2,000 pounds. then your PO value is reducing, right? So your PO value will be around 2,600. And as the month is progressing, you are tracking that purchase order so that you can highlight to the senior stakeholders. This is if you're in consulting, right? To say, yeah, we don't have a PO cover for some of the work that we're doing. So PO is more like a firm agreement to say, yes, these people have made this commitment, even though we are in agreement that we wanted to deliver this project, but they have made that firm commitment that we're going to make that payment and we're going to pay for that time or the invoice. Facilitates budgets, project budget approval. So every month or whenever a project needed additional funding, PMO person facilitating the documentation, the justifications that are required, engaging with the different stakeholders to make sure that all the required documentations are put in place to make sure that you get that approval. So supporting them. You might not necessarily create the project budget request. The PM will create it, the subject matter expert will create it, but supporting them to make sure that that is going well and the approval is sought and received. Then you update your budget tracker with the approved PCR. So once you update it with the approved PCR, that will increase your original budget. So original budget was £12,000. Now you realize that, oh, as you're going on along the project, you needed additional funding, you raise a PCR for it, and the PCR of maybe £2,500 that is approved. You include that in your budget. And this will help to be able to track the end-to-end of how much budget or how much has been spent on the project. So as a PMO person, you help to incorporate that approved PCR in the budget tracker. You develop templates and tools, you capture actions, just the regular thing that a PMO, a project support person, would do, and any ad hoc report. So there will be occasional ad hoc report that we wanted to see how much has been spent by the business analysis team this month on this project, how much has been spent by the solution architect team. So there could be various of different reports that they would want you to create. And it's similar for the PMO lead as well. It's just that a similar role, setting the budget approval governance, implement the budget approval process, and facilitating the sessions and engaging with the different stakeholders for project prioritization. At the beginning, I was mentioning about the objectives or the reason why project financial management is important. So the PMO lead, we help with the prioritization at that stage. They would say, oh, this project, we are investing so much in it. Based on the analysis and the tracking, I think we need to slow down the project and give room to other projects. And this help with the project prioritization. And the PMO lead kind of person will support the senior stakeholders in making that decision. So that is the end of our session. I'm going to, on project support, I have something briefly to talk about regarding governance. Today will be a very quick session, and I will stop sharing my screen now so that I can bring up the templates that I have for us with the budget or the project budget. Can you see my screen? Is it visible?
Yes.
Thank you. So we used this resource tracker during the Latherback session last year. And this is the old, so I just created something. It's just tracking the time, the rates that has been assigned to all of the different resources and all of that. So out of it, I created a resource data. And the resource data is just saying these are the different resources, the project name. So you could have, as a PMO person, you could be supporting up to 2 or 3 different projects or programs, even though you have a different tracker for each of them. I've just put as 2 here. We have Leatherback and we have Black and Scott, and we have different resources across them, which is the different work stream. What is the roles and responsibility? Just as if you are creating a resources tracker or project tracker, right? And you will say this resources, these are the names of the different resources, and this is the budget that has been allocated to them. This could be at this high level, at this detail level rather, or you could have it in form of just one big number saying, okay, you have £76,000 to spend this month. And in the background, there will be different materials, labor, license, different things that could make up for that particular budget for that month. But this one, we're using resources, which is like the most expensive, mostly anyway, in most of the projects delivering. So these are just numbers, random numbers that I made up, and saying this first project sponsor is going to spend, we have allocated 4,400 for the project sponsor to spend on the project in September. The same for the BA and project leader, the same for the 4,200 for the PMO leader, and the different resources, different allocation. And then based on engagement and different things, the project team can come back and say, oh, we don't think this person is going to spend the 4,400. We are forecasting that there's every probability of the person spending 5,400. So you document it. And the same applies to all of the different resources. Mind you, this is just the budget for September. At the end of the project, this is your budget. You have 288,000, and now is 288,000 from here. 200. It's up to you to profile it and say this is the forecast we're going to spend. So I have put forecast here, just random number, and the same forecast here. You can notice that this forecast is lower than the budget, and is also the actual is slightly higher than the forecast. Oh, sorry, is lower than the forecast and is lower than the budget. There are some occasions that things could happen like that in project world. And there are some occasions, look at this one as well. This is the budget. This is the actual spend. You can see that the budget is lower than the actual spend and is even higher. Sorry, the actual spend is higher than the budget, 79,950, than 72,000 that was budgeted, and is also higher than the forecast. So most times it doesn't stay stable, but what should stay stable really is your budget. And then your forecast can change. At the end of the year, not at the end of the year, at the end of every month, you need to have a summary of how much you are spending, and you need to record or report on this every month. So this is what I have done. I've put, this is just a simple summing up the numbers. Summing, what is the total budget? This is year to date. So year to date is in that particular year. You know, some projects could span for 6 months, some could span for 3 years, some could span for 18 months. So as of maybe a new financial year to date, this is how much we have spent on the project. So it's not giving the lifetime of the project's number, but it's only given at that particular financial year. And financial year could be January to December, or it could be April to March of the following year, depending on the organization. So in this one, we have just 4. I've just put 4 months into place. Let's say this project is for 4 months, right? And we have total budget. I've put total budget year to date for that as at the period. So let's say we are reviewing this at the end of October. That was our year to date, right? So it's just summing those 2 numbers together. And I've done the total forecast as well, which is summing, you can see, summing those 2 numbers together. And your actuals as well is summing those 2 numbers together. I'll do it for, I'll do it for all the resources now. So for all the resources, we can see you can see all the resources for the 2 months now. Oh my goodness, what have I done? Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Sorry, I was trying to press on escape and I press on turn off. Yeah, so at the end for the year to date, this is our budget. And this is how much we have forecasted that we're going to spend. And this is our actual. And then you do the variance. I'm just gonna just do the same thing for the variance. So you could see that, so this variance I've put budget and forecast variance. I've put, and then forecast and actual variance. So the variance is just minusing what was the total forecast year to date. And what was them? For total budget year to date minus total forecast year to date. This is just to check trends to see, yes, if your forecast is actually aligning with your budget as you have told the senior stakeholders. So they just wanted to see if you're keeping on track with what you said you are going to do. And then they check it as well with your actual. So you can see there isn't more. This is a very good one, but in an ideal world, it's very rare that you will find them having very close match. The variance, this is 143,700. That's about just £300 difference. If we check it, let's see now. Sorry. Anyway, that's just the basic thing that is required here. See? Here, your £400. Sorry. You're £400 higher or lower, sorry. You're £400 lower than your original budget based on your forecast, and you are £300 higher than what you forecast that you're going to spend. And it's very similar to what you do for the year end as well. So year end now, you have your total budget together. This is for one person. I will be very quick with this now. Is this clear what I'm explaining, right? So, yeah. So you have your total budget. Your total budget is 288,000. Your total forecast is currently showing 141,000, and your total actual is showing 144,000. And your total forecast actual. So this is your forecast to complete. Your forecast to complete is including what you have spent or what is the actual that has been received, which is from September and October, and your forecast, which is what you have still yet to spend, which is November and December. So you both of them together, these two numbers will make your forecast to complete. So that will form your forecast to complete in projects if you want to do it that way. Sometimes you don't have to be involved in resources and linking it. Sometimes it will just be these big numbers, but you need to understand when you extract the information from the system, what is making up all of those different differences rather. And the variance as well. So the variance, you can do it in terms of value, or you can do it in percentage as well. Business percentage. Yeah, so this is your variance. Your variance is saying that you are 1% less than your budget, because let me show you how the variance is calculated. You can see the numbers that is highlighted here. So this is your budget, 288,000. At the end, the forecast to complete based on where we are here today. You're saying you're going to spend 285,700, and that gives them 1% variance, which is like 2,500. This is very small, but is very good for the business to know, okay, if we have multiple projects that are going to spend 2,500 every month, and for the lifetime of the project, we could have like 10 or 20 projects like that, and all those money are just sitting down somewhere. Maybe we should be taking that money out and investing it in something else that would probably, instead of it sitting for the whole year, we could reinvest that money. So tracking this as a PMO, you would need to be able to help them to track it and give regular reports on it. So to give a report, I'm just gonna be very quick. To give a report, you just, I just wanted to use a pivot table, right? And I've created a pivot table here. It's not a full pivot table. For the benefit of people that don't know how to use pivot table, I'll just recreate a new one now. So I'll just go here. For you, if you want to create a report, you can learn how to use pivot table on YouTube, right? Pivot tables. Yeah, new worksheet. So you highlight the table range that you wanted that information to be from. And you said you wanted it in an existing new worksheet, a new worksheet, not the existing one. Just click OK. So that creates my pivot environment for me. I like it to be very, I want to try and be quick. So I'll select, okay. So I can see here now, roles and resources. I don't want to do based on roles and resources. I want to do based on work stream. So that means there's something I didn't highlight in my, oh goodness. Yeah, so it shows that I have missed out some of this when I was selecting it. So what do? I go back to my pivot. I'll change my source because I wanted to include the work stream. So instead of it selecting from C, I wanted to select from A. Okay, so now I can see my work stream there because I wanted just the work stream. The people, I wanted to see the different areas, how much they are spending, who is spending more money between the different programs. And instead of going into the details, I don't want the details. I just want to see where they are in year-to-date figure. So I'm going to use the total budget, forecast, and actuals. Yeah, so this is, oh, why is it project sponsor? Refresh. Yep. I don't know if I can be explaining this, but I think you should just go and learn it in, so it's showing my year-to-date total budget. Need to check this. Oh, this is where it should give me that one. Mm. Hmm. Hmm. Oh, I know why. Sorry, guys. Yeah, I'm surprised. Why is it showing this? Go back. I don't want to see the blank because it's just, yeah. So this is just what we have based on, yeah. So I can see at a glance, instead of presenting this information to senior stakeholders, like, oh yeah, this resources, this team, oh, this is how much they have spent year to date. You can present it like this. Oh yeah, business analysis, they've spent this amount of money. PMO, they've spent this. Project sponsors only spent, no, sorry, that's the budget that we allocated to them. This is how much they have spent. You can just present that kind of information to your senior stakeholders. It's quite easy for them to just look at it and understand rather than having to read the details. And you can make it funky, well, because they like graphs, you can just create insert pivot chart and create a chart, whichever one. Let's use this one because of time. You can change the color, you can change the layouts here. Is my screen still visible?
Yes.
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 Okay. Yeah, so you can create something like this to them. So this is more like your budget. You can hide all of this one if you don't want them, right? Hide. What do you want to hide? Work stream. You can hide any information that you don't want. And add, you want the title. You can add different things that you wanted, chart title as well. So you can call it year-to-date resources usage or something, right? And change the color. I think you can learn more on them. Sorry, learn more in you can learn more in the different layout or the different charts that you want to use. If you want to change you can change the style of your charts. If you see, there are different options here. You choose whichever one that you think is suitable for your audience and just present that information to them. Yeah, so this is on project forecast. Project financial management. That's all I have on that. I will just quickly talk to us on governance, and that will be it in the next 10 minutes. Oh, Lord. Share screen. Is my screen visible? Yes.
Yes.
Pardon me. So the next thing we're talking about is on governance, right? That is, what is project governance, PMO governance, the different forums where the governance is required, and project prioritization and approval. If you notice, I put continuous improvement in most of all the conversations, all the sessions that we're covering. That means, like, even based on what we have discussed, there will always be something that can be improved on it. And you should, as a PMO, just be thinking outside the box, how they are currently doing something, what little bit of things can you add to it? That's why I put the continuous improvement in there. So what is a governance? Governance has a framework of control and shows who is responsible for what, how do we want to define project outcomes, project deliverables, and the benefits. Yeah, so it's a framework that controls and defines accountability on projects, saying, okay, this project needs to have this number of sponsors, needs to have this number of approvals. It defines and controls how projects deliverables needs to be delivered. And it also ensures that all the agreed objectives of the project are in place. So what has been agreed by the business sponsors, the program managers, the PMO governance, if you call it project governance or PMO governance, ensures that they are following that and there are structure in place to make sure that that is being delivered. And we discussed about change, risk, all of this needs to have a governance in place. Is saying that we need to have the right people to be in the project, to be involved in the project, to be engaged in the project, and we need to have the right approvals. And it's not one fit size for all. So project governance is slightly different from project management. You know, project management involves the planning, the managing, the controlling of how a project will be delivered. Whereas project governance is controlling and dictating, well, did I say dictating? Controlling how we want that project to be delivered and ensuring that what we have agreed and the individual stakeholders that needs to be involved in it, they are doing what is required for that project objectives to be delivered. So project governance can be tailored to different projects, right? It has to be project specific, organization specific. And for a project governance to be categorized as a good governance, it needs to be followed as a law, saying, okay, these are the law, these are the structures, that are standards that we have set in place, and we need to ensure compliance. So as a PMO, you need to ensure compliance for your governance to be regarded as a good governance. And it needs to be inclusive and equitable. That means it includes all the required stakeholders, everyone that is being impacted or that is participating in the project, they are all included in the project governance. And it's, participatory. It's not like, in a way, it's setting the standard for the project, how we want them to be delivered, ensuring that there is accountability across all of the different stakeholders. So there's a defined roles and responsibility for everyone. The project sponsors need to know what they needed to do. A test manager or a project manager needs to know what they need to do. So governance ensure that accountability is put in place and responsibility is defined as well. Is transparent, is doable, is efficient. So as a PMO, sometimes, most of the time, really, let me put it that way, that the PMO person will work with the subject matter experts and with the top people to set up this governance. They set up the governance, and the governance will determine how the project is being delivered. So most times when you join an organization, first thing you should be asking is, do they have a governance framework in place? Or do they have an investment framework in place? It's just highlight, like saying this type of project, this is the kind of rigor that we need to include in it. This is the kind of forum we want to have in it. And if there are none, you work with a subject matter expert to create one for that particular project. Well, most of the time, they always have, in a very structured and big organizations, there is a governance framework in place for how projects will be delivered. So what's the essence of governance, right? So this is one of the things that I picked from our ladder back down, that highlight some form of governance and saying, oh, these are the forums, these are the required stakeholders, this is a frequency of the stakeholders. And what project governance does is it ensures appropriate stakeholders engagement on the project, right approval process for project deliverables. So every project has got different phases. For each of those phases, there is an agreed deliverables that needs to be delivered. And there are governance that are put in place to ensure that before the project progresses to the next phase or to the next stage, those agreed deliverables have been signed off and reviewed and approved by the right stakeholders. So ensure that the right approval process, even if it is for a change request now, ensure that you have the right stakeholders to make that decision to say, yes, we are happy with the change to go ahead, or we want to accept this risk. So making sure that you have the right process in place for approval and define the roles and responsibilities. So the governance also helps to define roles and responsibilities. If you notice in previous sessions as well, there is a governance in the change in the risks that we discussed. And governance is making sure you have the right stakeholders, the right communication cadence. How do you want to communicate to your stakeholders? What's the frequency of the communication? Is it by reporting? Is it by presentation? So there's a communication cadence that has been defined and highlighted in your governance. And it also ensures that there are regular and appropriate check-ins for project deliverables. Define the governance forum. So what forum do we want to present our change requests? What forum do we want to escalate certain things to the senior stakeholders? What forum do we want to provide status update on how the project or how the program is progressing? So these are some of the things that the PMO help to support. So PMO help to ensure compliance to all the already set governance or standard for the company, and as well as supporting to make sure that you have the right stakeholders, the right people, and the right approval in place, and the support with the creation of the governance framework. That is the end of today's session. So I don't know if we have any question. Could we please stop recording?
Yes, please. I have a question.
Okay.
And can you please help me? So what's the difference between project governance and project framework or project standard?
What's the difference between project governance
and project framework and project standard? I'm getting mixed up with the terminologies.
Yeah, so it depends on the organization. Most of the organizations will have a governance framework. In terms of standard are a set of things that needs to be abided by. So it could be we wanted our projects to have this set of deliverables, and it needs to have this form of details. That details governance is making sure that that standard that has been set is being followed through, is being adhered to. And framework is almost like having a structure in place to say, okay, this is how we wanted it to happen. This is how we want the project to be delivered. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, do we have any other question?
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I was just going to ask, but let me I think I just want to add a bit to that question, or to the answer you gave. I was thinking that maybe the governance, we could say they are the laws guiding the projects, and maybe the standards are like ethics, and the framework is just like a module of operation. So I don't know if it makes sense that way.
Yeah, it does make sense. So the framework is the structure or the modules, yeah.
So I was going to ask about the Excel that you used, which was really nice. Thanks so much for breaking it down. Although it was very quick, I was hoping that are we going to have a video are we going to be able to get this slides or something? I don't even know.
The video is recorded, this session is recorded and the videos are being shared. I think they are on YouTube.
Oh, sorry, is there a link to getting on YouTube, please?
Yes, it's on the Ladderback, on the Black and Scott Telegram page. The video is shared there.
Sorry, because this is my first time, of attending this meeting, so I don't even have an idea what.
It's okay. We could share the link in the message.
Okay, that's fine. And I was going to ask about MS projects, but sometimes you see the job descriptions or person specifications about jobs, and you see MS projects there. Is what we've done on that Excel is applicable on the MS project?
Yes, it is. It is applicable. So, but MS project, you are using it to plan the project, right? And in planning the project, highlighting the different tasks, the different timeline that is required, as well as highlighting the resources that will be doing those timeline, assigning percentage completion to them, assigning how much it will cost to be able to deliver that project within the timeline. So what I have there in the Excel spreadsheet is just resources and tracker, sort of with like a budget tracker. Whereas in MS Project, he has a lot of more informations, such as the timeline that is required, such as the tax that is associated with them. So you could extract a report from MS Project to generate that information and create that kind of report as well.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Hi, Richie.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, and based on what someone just said now, do PMO, do they involve in scheduling in projects?
Yes.
Okay.
It depends on the organization, right? And it depends on the skill set. So there are some organizations where I have worked where we have portfolio planners because of the complexity of what is involved. You as a PM was working on 3 to 4 programs, you already maxed out. because of the different things that you needed to do. And there are portfolio planners that they are very skilled with the use of MS Project, with the use of Primavera to plan the project to the details. So you could function as that, because in a portfolio office, you have the planner there as well as the PMO, but it would be a good added skill if you as a PMO knows how to use the MS Project, so you can do similar things as a planner. So one thing with the difference is, and if you notice in some of our session as well, BA is, I'll put it this way, streamline, because you have like just this set of things that you needed to do. Planner or scheduler is streamlined, and you just need to focus on your plan. You need to understand the risk. You need to understand the changes that are involved in it. Whereas a PMO, you are involved, it gives you an all-round experience of different things. And that's why we tend to encourage that. It's a good way for people to come into the project management, because they expose you to different aspects of project delivery and what is involved in all of them, so that you can be able to gain the required experience and build on it to say, okay, yeah, you wanted to go into this area, just specialized on a particular area. Yeah, so that's the difference across all of those different areas.
All right, thank you so very much. And just to add one more question, please. From your first video, you mentioned about setting up a PMO office. So I don't know, is there a specific training on that, or it's just talking about all these procedure and processes that you've explained, or there's a specific way to set up a PMO office?
Yes, there is a specific way to set up a PMO office. Is not this one. It's part of this one, right? But it's deeper than that, because setting up any new process involving majorly stakeholders, ensuring that they have stakeholders engagement, there are different steps that are required. So setting up a PMO is almost like setting up a new risk management process in an organization, or setting up a new change management process in an organization, project change management in an organization. The only difference is that it's bigger and it involves a lot of all these different aspects of PMO. But you would follow almost similar approach. It's just that it's quite a big one. And it depends on the organization as well. So when you want to set up a PMO, you need to understand the stakeholders. You need to understand what is their needs as a PMO. What should be your first point of success or your small win? What do they need? And it takes a lot of experience before you can go in and say, yes, you want to help and set up a PMO. And you could be in project, as long as you have been in project management, yes, you can go in. But if you are new to project management, I wouldn't advise you to just go in like that as your first rule and set up a PMO. But you can do it if you've got the boldness and the confidence. It's just making sure that you have your facts and figures to convince your senior stakeholders, and you know what to say, with who to say, and to get their buy-in, and to make sure that the implementation process also flowing very well. So it's a lot of planning and engagement with the senior stakeholders.
All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay, do we have any more question? All right, in the absence of none, Adegoke is raising hand. Hi,
Mary.
okay.
Hi, Mary. Good afternoon, everyone. I just wanted to say thank you to Mary and the entire Black as Scott platform. It's my first time attending the session. I've been away for quite a long time, and I would have attended previous sessions. I've seen them on YouTube, and one shouldn't take it lightly how much time, work, and energy goes into this. So, Mary, well done. Thank you. It's been very informative. I'm sure it's blessed a number of people, and I just wanted to say thank you to yourself and the Black as Scott platform. So it's an amazing job. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. So Goke is my friend, everyone that doesn't know Goke. I don't want to start the whole story way back into uni days, but he's a lead in PMO, like top guy in PMO. So I'm impressed that you're part of this session, and thank you for joining us.
I would have joined if I'd been around, but this is I just had to say thank you. I've seen the other sessions. A lot of people pay thousands of pounds for this, and you've given us this for free. So thank you, and I'm sure I speak the minds of everyone on this call to thank you. We're grateful. Thanks, Mary.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay.